All right. Dutch education system. That's what we're diving into today. We've got like these excerpts, and they're from this whole podcast series about it.
Oh, really? A whole series dedicated to just the Dutch education system.
Yeah. It looks like it's a deep dive, 3 whole parts. They're calling it, get this, is studying in the Netherlands right for you? Exploring the Dutch education system.
Wow. Okay, so they're not shying away from a target audience there. Sounds like they're going for practicality.
Right. I mean, it makes you think, right for you, I mean. Maybe we'll find out. But part 1 here is called The Dutch Education System, Facts. Facts, huh?
Well, we've got to start somewhere.
Right.
Laying down the groundwork. And it seems like they're covering the whole structure, from primary school all the way up to university.
Okay, so the whole shebang. But from what I'm seeing here, they're spending a decent chunk of time on vocational training, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, it jumped out to me, too. It's definitely not something you see emphasized as much in, say, the American system.
Yeah.
Seems like the Dutch are really preparing kids for a variety of paths.
Definitely. Not just pushing everyone towards university, which is refreshing. Okay, but let's move on to part 2 here. The Dutch education system. Challenges. Ooh, getting a little juicier now, don't you think? Challenges, huh?
Definitely. And they're not shying away from the big ones either. One they mentioned specifically is, and I'm quoting here, the growing pains of internationalization.
Right, because the Netherlands is like a huge e-magnet for international students.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to manage that influx while like holding on to your own language and culture, that's got to be tricky.
Yeah, it's that classic balancing act. How do you be welcoming and globally minded without losing what makes you, you? It's something a lot of countries are grappling with these days, and it's definitely playing out in education.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's the housing crisis. They mentioned that here. And it's a huge deal for students everywhere, but especially if you're coming from abroad and don't know the ropes.
Right. Practical concerns like that can really make or break your experience. And then there's the whole question of language. Dutch versus English in the classroom. That's a big one.
Oh, yeah. I can see that being a whole debate. Trying to attract international students, maybe offering more courses in English, but also wanting to preserve the Dutch language. It's complicated.
Very complicated. And it looks like they're really getting into the weeds on that one, which I appreciate. Then they wrap it all up with the Dutch education system. Considerations.
Okay, so like the big picture stuff. What does it all mean?
Exactly. They're going deep on the pros and cons of studying in the Netherlands, particularly for those international students they're clearly trying to attract. What are the unique aspects of this system, good and bad?
Makes sense. So, listeners, if you're even toying with the idea of studying abroad, this whole series sounds like it's worth a listen, just to see how another system works, what they're doing differently. But to wrap up our look at the Dutch education system today, what's the one big takeaway you want to leave with our listeners?
I think the big thing here is that the Dutch education system, it's not just about, like, what's happening in the classroom. It's a reflection of these larger social and cultural trends, globalization, changing demographics, the future of work. These excerpts really highlight that, and it seems like the series will offer a really insightful look at all of it. So, yeah, if you're at all interested in the future of education, give it a listen.